There's a serious storm brewing over at Manchester United. And it's not really about what's happening on the pitch. It's about a power struggle playing out behind the scenes. We're talking about the new manager, Ruben Amorim, and the club's top brass. Today, we're going to break down how this whole thing got so public so incredibly fast. And it all just exploded with this one single line. On January 4th, right after a draw with Leeds, Ruben Amorim just let it rip. Now, this wasn't some off-the-cuff frustrated comment. This was a public shot, a declaration of a really deep conflict over his role and his power at the club. So that's the big question we're digging into here. How did we even get to this point? What are the real issues at play? And what on earth does this public feud mean for the future of Manchester United? Let's get into the details. Okay, let's start with what Amorim actually said, because trust me, he chose those words very, very carefully. When he says he's the manager, not a coach, he is firing a direct shot in a battle for control. And you've got to understand, this was a calculated move. This was Amorim drawing a line in the sand, not just for the fans, but for everyone in the boardroom. He was making it crystal clear that he expects to have the final say on the big decisions. And this right here, this slide gets to the absolute heart of the problem. See, in modern football, a head coach is often just handed a bunch of players and told, go make it work. But a manager, in that classic sense, has a much bigger job. They're involved in who the club buys and sells. They shape the entire footballing vision. Amorim clearly thinks he signed up to be the manager. The club, well, it seems like they see him more as the head coach. There's a fundamental disagreement about the entire strategy of the club. We're talking about two totally different visions for where Manchester United should be going. So on one side you've got Amorim saying, let's spend money now in January so we can lock down that Champions League spot. And he wants players that fit his specific 3-4-3 formation. But on the other side, the club is pumping the brakes, saying, whoa, hold on. They want to stop the cycle of these expensive short-term fixes and actually build something that's going to last. And the club's logic here is all about not repeating the mistakes of the past. They've a clear plan for the summer window. They've got their targets lined up. Plus, they're counting on getting some key guys back from the African Cup of Nations to boost the squad. For the board, this is a marathon, but for Amorim, it feels like a sprint, and he thinks the clock is ticking. So how did this all end up spilling out into the public? Well, believe me, this wasn't some sudden explosion. The tension has been building for weeks, with Amorim himself dropping little hints and comments that got more and more pointed. What started as a little bit of frustration back on Christmas Eve just snowballed into this huge public challenge only 10 days later. Let's break down exactly what he said, and maybe more importantly, how he said it. Okay, this was the first shot across the bow. Amorim comes out and directly connects his favourite tactic to needing a lot of cash. And then, in the same breath, he says he doesn't think it's going to happen. He's basically telling the fans, look, I can't do my best work if they don't give me the tools I need. And then boom, just 2 days later, he raises the stakes. He's not talking in vague terms anymore. He's naming names. Director of Football Jason Wilcox and the board. He uses that nice diplomatic phrase, common ground, but the message is the total opposite. Right now, we are not on the same page. Then came the silence, and that was almost louder. Journalists started noticing a huge change in his whole demeanour. The charm gone, replaced by this cold, cagey attitude. When they tried to ask him about what he'd said before, he just shut it down. The tension was thick in the air. Okay, so we've heard from the manager, we've seen the timeline, but what do the experts think? What do seasoned observers make of this whole public power play? Well, let's just say Sky Sports' Jamie Carragher did not hold back. Carragher's basically saying Amorim is in absolutely no position to be making these kinds of demands or questioning his bosses. He's arguing that his performances just haven't earned him the right to do that. Now, Carragher's got two theories here. The first one's obvious, right? Amorim's mad he's not getting his new players in January. But the second theory, now that's interesting. Carragher thinks that maybe the board is questioning Amorim's own indecisiveness, his tactical flip-flopping. So, is it possible that Amorim's public attacks are actually a defence mechanism? A way to get ahead of the criticism coming from inside the club? And here's the thing. All this drama off the field is happening at literally the worst possible time, because on the pitch, the pressure is about to get turned up to a whole new level. I mean, just have a look at the games they have coming up. an away trip, an FA Cup match, and then back-to-back league games against their biggest rivals, Man City and Arsenal. This is an absolutely brutal stretch of fixtures where every single point matters. Any more bad results will just pour gasoline on the fire between the manager and the board. And that's where we have to leave it. It's a genuine high-stakes standoff at Old Trafford. You've got a manager demanding more control out in the open, and a board that's determined to stick to their long-term plan. With a month of games that could make or break their season, something's got to give. The only question is, what or who is it going to be?